Hi, everyone, and welcome to our training for Ayudantes Escolares Online. We are really excited to work with all of you and appreciate you taking some time to learn about some really important information before we can get started working with children. My name is Hannah Gill, and I will get us started today and with an overview about where this program lives and how it got started. We work at the UNC Chapel Hill Institute for the Study of the Americas, and we've developed a pilot program that provides online learning for students in elementary school in Spanish-speaking families. And this pilot is going to be offering online tutoring to assist the teachers and as well as K-5 students and their families during this crisis when many students are home attempting to learn online. So tutors in this program are students, bilingual students at UNC Chapel Hill and Duke University, and they will be receiving oversight from the people who are giving your training today, staff at the Institute for the Study of the Americas at UNC Chapel Hill. Right now we're working with the school systems of Chapel Hill, Chatham County, and in Durham. And we hope to expand the program, but currently those are the partnerships that we have. In terms of the program history, we learned about this need very recently when one of the initiatives of the Institute for the Study of the Americas called the Latino Migration Project. We work with local governments, and we did a webinar with our partners around the state, and we found out that a lot of families were in need of these services. So we had this idea to create the tutoring program to try to match university students with families and teachers in need of extra support during this really difficult time that we're all living through. So I'm going to let my colleagues introduce themselves. As I mentioned before, my name is Hannah Gill, and I'll be serving as the school and family liaison of the Ayudantes Escolares Online program. I will let my coworker, Brianna Gilmore, introduce herself. Next.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brianna Gilmore, and I will be playing the role as the volunteer coordinator, so you'll probably receive lots of emails if you haven't already from me. So.
Hi everyone, my name is Corinne Zaragoza Estrella, and I am the academic specialist for Ayudantes. So if you have any questions about teaching or helping your students that you work with learn, please feel free to reach out to me at any point.
And then Marissa Carlton is our one of our other team members, and she's a program coordinator, and she's doing a lot of work connecting, helping connect students to volunteers and connecting with families as well. So, all right, I will advance to the next slide.
So now we're going to go over some volunteer duties. These are basic rules and day-to-day activities that we expect of you. So first one is the volunteer will be partnered with a K-5 student and their family to offer educational support online. The volunteer will also communicate on a regular basis with the child's teachers or teacher or an ESL support staff person. Additionally, volunteers we expect them, they should be able to provide interpretation from English into Spanish of various communication and other educational materials from the teachers to the students and parents and guardians via various sorts of media, so YouTube videos, emails, newsletters, remind messages, and other platforms that a family is comfortable with. Additionally, volunteers may offer office hours for students to help receive help on lessons during mutually convenient times for both parties. Additionally, volunteers are available for other support as needed by the teachers. So our expectations of the volunteers are, we expect that you commit between 4 to 10 hours a week. You commit to volunteer at least until June 15th with an option to extend until August 15th. Additionally, if you have any communication issues or concerns with the families and your students, immediately contact my coworkers Hannah and Corinne And also, check in with me periodically about your experience. And we also have a volunteer log hour sheet. So if you the documentation, we can provide that for you. And at the end of our program, we can sign off on hours that you've tracked with your tutoring and translation and other materials that we've asked you to help us with. And so in order to get started, one of our first steps on that process is we're going to set up a virtual meeting with the guardian, student, and teacher if possible, so you can introduce yourself. Volunteers basically will, need to understand the dynamic and setup of the family and of the child. For example, asking questions such as, what is most important for your kid to get out of this relationship? We want to make sure that we are providing a realistic goal and that we're able to discuss together what areas the children should be focusing on. Additionally, obviously use age-appropriate language and be positive. Additionally, setting up times for tutoring and discussing what platforms the family is most comfortable with. As we've listed a few here: Zoom, WhatsApp, FaceTime, Remind, Google Hangouts. And those are the ones that, we'll work with the families about which ones are the safest and which ones they feel comfortable interacting with as well. And also, we want to keep it short and brief, but intentional at the same time.
So once you signed a time, a mutually agreeable time and platform to communicate with your potential student, here are some tutoring tips to keep in mind as you work with a child. The first thing would be, if applicable, and if you're able to do it, would be to seek advice from the child's teacher, to ask what the child needs help with. They can provide some really great insights into what the student needs to work on, as well as kind of the best way to teach that material. We also really encourage you to seek out non-traditional ways of engaging with the child, to build that relationship, to have a really positive relationship with the child, so that way he or she will be more receptive to the tutoring. For example, you could do a story perhaps every Tuesday, then do kind of a fun quiz on Kahoot or some sort of other platform, so that you're learning, but you're having fun while you're doing it. We also suggest that you ask the child what their interests are and think of books and materials that help engage that interest. So if your child who is interested in baseball, you can find books that are about baseball, because the child will have a lot of background knowledge about the subject and they'll be really interested in learning more about that. I also suggest looking on YouTube for read aloud stories that are out there. Obviously, we're not able to access a library at this time, but there are some really great resources online, and you can feel free to email me for any suggestions on how to find materials out there. A lot of students, particularly in elementary school, really need help with reading comprehension. So a great way to work on that is to ask questions about the story. For example, what did the character in the story think about what happened to them? Or how do you think the character felt? Or what would you do in that situation? Just to really kind of see that the child understands what's happening in the story. Some other tips in terms of navigating technology is that second and third graders and older are able to navigate multiple tabs and a video chat at the same time independently, whereas the younger students, kindergarten, first grade, it's a little harder for them to do that. So they'll either need a parent to help, or you'll try to limit that requirement from them. Some of our families might not have a reliable internet connection, so we suggest using FaceTime to engage with schoolwork and tutors. A phone call could work as well, as long as the volunteer has had a copy of the assignment first and kind of knows what's going on, and they can kind of ask those reading comprehension questions over the phone as well. And then also just kind of remember that meeting someone for the first time can be a little awkward, especially for children meeting adults, and adding the virtual component makes it a little awkward for some students. So spend a few minutes each session just kind of talking and getting to know the student a little bit, finding out what kind of things they're interested in, or just learning about their life to make them more comfortable and to help them learn best from you. Specifically, when you're working with students who are working on learning English, we encourage you to use a lot of visuals. So if you can, using a whiteboard or a piece of paper to draw something to illustrate, to show the concepts that you're trying to explain. Using videos and Google images and pictures and things, that'll also help the students learn vocabulary and understand concepts better. Again, creating a safe environment for practicing language. So creating a positive relationship with the child and also encouraging them to make mistakes is really important. I encourage you to introduce new vocabulary at the start of a lesson, so that way students will have that knowledge before they get into the more how-to, just making sure that students understand everything that you're talking about. Of course, we really encourage you to make use of the students' native languages, but also be aware of various degrees of native language fluency. So just because a student speaks Spanish at home conversationally doesn't mean they'll know the Spanish of the academic setting, particularly since most of these students, if they were born in the US or they've only gone to school in the US, English might be a stronger language for them. And so Spanish might not always be a great fallback in explaining something because they may be stronger in Spanish. I'm sorry, their English speaking skills might be stronger than their Spanish skills. And we also encourage you to use sentence frames to give students practice with academic language. So when you're asking a student a question, kind of helping them use more school appropriate words to describe something. So if you ask them, what do you see in the picture? And they say a book, kind of give them the language to describe in English with more specific, with more specific language. So for example, in the picture, I see a book as opposed to a book. So those are some brief tips for working with English language learners. Please reach out if you have any questions about that as well.
Okay, so I'm going to go over some regulations that UNC Chapel Hill and many other universities have for virtual interactions with minors. This is really a key, very important part that that we want you to really, you know, keep in mind. So a parent, one of our staff members, or an adult third party must participate in all online interactions with minor participants. Parents must sign a release form. They must sign a release form. We are not going to be recording sessions, but they will have to sign a release form to be participating in the volunteer program, and we will, our team, our staff, it will secure those release forms in advance, so you won't have to worry about getting that. Also, minors and their parents and all volunteers have to comply with a code of conduct, and so all participants have to sign basically an agreement that that lays out certain kinds of behavior, appropriate behavior, and we'll be going over that. Volunteers are not permitted to share personal email or their personal social media sites with minor participants, and it's also volunteers are not permitted to have contact with the participants outside of the program. There should always be a third party on all communications with students. So that could be with an email. You'd want to be CCing one of our staff members, one of the 4 of us here. And we may or may not be using a texting application. We will be working with the family to determine what their comfort level is and in terms of the platforms that they want to use. And we'll be giving you more information about that as we go along. Also, you want to make sure that that all of the discussions, the volunteers, all the discussions that you have with the students you're working with are, are related to the program, and that all participants are encouraged to contribute. And of course, we use respectful language, and everyone engages in respectful behavior. So the UNC Chapel Hill the guidance working with minors is that volunteers should never share or ask for from the minor personal information. And we have gone through and found, we are identifying below some categories of some types of personal information that you would not ask for or that you would not share yourself. So some of these can include, you know, home address. That would be your home address as a volunteer, but you would never ask a child for their home address. Certainly never immigration status, any kind of medical information or health conditions, financial information, family information, like detailed family information, any, as we mentioned before, any kind of personal social media accounts or photos, and then information about romantic partners or spouses or anything sexual. We also want to encourage you to think carefully about your own online presence, because as a volunteer, everything you put out there can be found, and it would be really, you know, you want to think about what you put up there before you post, and we know that you probably already do that, but we just want to remind you, especially if you're working with a minor, that they are going to be looking up to you and probably curious about you, and they're probably, you know, they have access to the internet, and you never know what they might be, you know, looking you up. So volunteers should really develop an awareness of their digital footprints online and just think about the consequences of everything you post. And this is not just for working with minors, it's just for your own professional future. Don't share any photos, information about students or their families online or any social media platform. That's huge. If you're, you know, you would never want to take screenshots, you would never want to record an interaction on Zoom or on Google Meet or whatever platform you're using. You would never want to share anything personal about the student you're mentoring, you know, you're tutoring online. It's all very private. Okay, so we're going to leave you with staff contact information here, which you should already have. And then we require that all volunteers take a quiz on this training that we just provided you, and you have to get 100% on it before you can be approved for the program. And here is a link to the quiz. So we are really excited about matching you with a student, and we'll be in touch with you really soon. So please send us, please take the quiz, and we will be in touch with you soon. All right, thank you so much.